Thank you for joining us on today's technology podcast discussion on POTS lines replacement. We have two expert panelists joining us today. Please allow me to introduce Anna Hansen. Anna is the Director of Sales at Bytespeed, a premier IT solutions provider since 1999. Anna has been helping businesses leverage technology's potential while building partnerships across the United States for the past 18 years. Anna is a true leader who stands at the intersection of business and technology solutions. Also joining us today is Didi Perret. Didi is a Senior Product Marketing Manager at Cradlepoint. Didi has a wealth of experience, spanning 20 years in the networking field. Didi is passionate about innovative technology solutions that drive improved results for enterprise IT customers. Her areas of expertise range from 5G LTE wireless WAN, enterprise routing, edge computing, and network security. Before joining Cradlepoint, Didi held impactful roles at Cisco and Forescout Technologies. Today, she joins us from Silicon Valley, the epicenter of technological innovation. Anna, will you please take a moment to introduce the Cradlepoint and Bytespeed relationship and tell us a little bit more about that?
So at Bytespeed, our manufacturing roots really remain central to our identity. However, we've really transformed into a company that not only manufactures, but we also are really highly focused on just resolving those everyday challenges that are faced by the technology leaders that we're working with. I believe this emphasis on problem solving is really kind of where true innovation happens, and I love it. So particularly through partnerships like the one that we have with Cradlepoint, collaborating with experts like Dee here who have the experience in navigating through this wonderful evolving landscape that we're all in. It's really provided us so many valuable opportunities as an organization. To give you a little background, although this current conversation is really about the POTS line replacement solution, we've had a ton of success with Cradlepoint. In-vehicle solutions over the last 2 years, we've done thousands of them. We've put in a lot of failover solutions. I feel like today's conversation really represents the next logical step in this evolving relationship between Bytespeed and Cradlepoint and the technology leaders that we're supporting out in the field today.
So Didi, let's get started with maybe a little bit of history on what POTS lines are and why are businesses replacing them?
Sure, and thank you, Carlos. So POTS line, they're plain old telephone service, and they've been around since there's been communications. What happened, though, is over time there was the introduction of voice over IP, and that's using the internet protocol to transmit voice and data on the same line. It's something that's been around for decades at this stage, and it's kind of the standard in the industry. So once voice over IP took hold, it made it so that carriers and businesses it really caused the downturn of usage of the plain old telephone service. And, part of that is because you can have so much more data and so many more services that can happen that are really limited on the POTS lines. And so that transfer has happened, and now more and more customers are embracing voice over IP. The market has really diminished for plain old telephone service. But one thing we can say, though, is that there is a number of equipment that has utilized plain old telephone service in the past, and those still exist. So those would include, for example, alarm boxes or elevators may have kind of a call service in them as well. And so those still exist. And so that's, what exists in the marketplace today. But it's something that over time, as POTS is diminished, it's no longer offered by carriers. Those are things that will need to change out.
I am going to say that when you said elevator emergency lines, I'm thinking, how many times have I jumped into an elevator that felt like it was fairly old, that may be running on some sort of system that is outdated, nobody's managing, or that the carrier just decided they're not going to provide any maintenance for. And if I got stuck in there, how would anybody know I was there unless, I guess, if my cell phone works, it would be fine. But if it doesn't work, then I could be there for a weekend. That's kind of scary.
Every time I get on an elevator that's really full, I always tell people, could you imagine if all of us got stuck on this together? You should see the panic in everyone's eyes when they're looking. Oh my gosh.
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
No, but it does make, in elevators and scenarios like that, it's pretty complicated to make those updates. And so it's not something where you would just put in a service or just a single box solution that doesn't have that backing of an expert behind it. So you really need to make sure you're careful in how you proceed, especially with that type of emergency services.
An emergency situation, that accessibility issue becomes just so much more critical, and the elevators being down, it's not okay. Wasn't there too, Dee Dee, there was a couple of events across the U.S. that really had a huge impact, like Hurricane Sandy, just forcing everybody to really relook at the SLAs. So the service support too, that the requirement on how quickly things could be repaired and what it takes to get those lines repaired was really, really impactful too. I'm sure you saw some big changes in the support across that at that time too.
No, and that was kind of a watershed moment, right? And it was one of those moments, if you think about it, during hurricane events or during some kind of emergencies, what it comes up first is typically not the wired connections, but it's the cellular connections. Those are things that come up first. So,
and trying to recover after a disaster like that and get those lines back in place for emergency services is not an easy thing to do.
Anna, have there been many Bytespeed customers that have been affected by the FCC mandate?
Yeah, in a word, yes. And most of them have similar stories to share. So a lot of users are running into issues with systems going down because the old lines are in poor repair, and the sense of urgency to keep them up is just not what is there anymore. So like Dee Dee had referenced earlier, the FCC changing the mandates, there's no urgency for them to get in there and get those updates done. So you've got that. And then to make matters even worse, you might not even realize you have an issue if your system is down. So there's no alert system in place in a lot of these systems. So you might find out, for example, we had a customer that we were working with that told me that he didn't know he had issues with his lines, which was pretty often that he did. And he wouldn't even know about them until the provider called and let him know. So without those alerts, you could have very critical things down that you're not able to keep track of. So those legacy technology systems really, they don't provide that notification and they're not reliable. A school that we worked with, they actually built out a new building, and it was 2 years of constant harassment just to get the lines out to the new building. So there's no sense of urgency. The costs are high. It's really rough right now.
Absolutely. And the FCC mandate came through. Well, actually, it was the relaxing of the mandate. It used to be that the FCC had in place that carriers had to offer POTS lines, and they just released that mandate, and they said it's no longer a requirement. And so, but what has that done to the market? It has made it so that some carriers are offering discounts, and they really want to get their customers off the POTS lines. Others are using it as an opportunity to take advantage of market pricing, and so that raises kind of the concern for our customers in terms of, are you getting the value out of that POTS line now that the prices are rising based on market pricing? So it's kind of a wild west at the moment, and it's an opportunity for customers to think about, do I want to kind of wait until I'm forced out to make a decision? Or do I want to be proactive and make the decision the way that I want to in the timing that I want to?
Well, I've had a few people say that they are not running into issues right now, and it's coming because they're not mandated anymore to maintain those lines, and maintaining those lines is expensive, and quite frankly, a lot of those lines are old. So if it's not a problem for you right now and your rates aren't going up, that's fantastic. But I would be proactively looking at a solution, because as soon as they have to do repairs, they're going to have to get their money back somewhere, or they won't do it and they'll try and force you on eventually. So this is coming.
Is there a date where this mandate takes effect?
The FCC is no longer mandating by law that POTS lines is in the U.S. be maintained by service providers effective August 2nd of 2022.
Didi, can you share what some of the POTS lines replacement options are?
Sure, Carlos. The most straightforward solution for POTS line replacement has to do with an LTE solution. And the reasons for that are the fact that it carries that voice over IP traffic the same as data as well over cellular lines, which means that you can install it anywhere without having to drag a cable, or it just makes it a lot easier. If you think about those locations like emergency alarms or ATMs, they may not be in a location where it's very easy to have a wired connection. But the other thing that it does is it sets up so that there is redundancy. You're not dependent on a terrestrial line that can be severed in the event of some kind of construction or things like that. So these critical services that tend to still have a POTS line in them have the opportunity to still remain, reliable and ready, but at the same time, it's redundant and reliable that way. But then another thing about that, having that type of solution, is the fact that it's available with different carriers. You can have multiple carriers. You can have redundancy in terms of, so if one service happens to have an outage, then another service can also be available as well. But really, it's kind of a combination of a number of different things with the router itself that give it a really compact form factor, and the ability to have wired, cellular, a number of different connectivity options, having the redundancy. It's one component of a service that I know that Bytespeed is able to do to really build value-added services around the wireless capabilities to have a comprehensive solution for customers needing to replace their POTS lines.
Thank you, Didi. I'm really proud of the solution that we've created here at Bytespeed. So what we've done is we've combined a Cradlepoint router with high gain antennas, and then it's all connected to an ATA. So it has a battery backup, so you got that minimum runtime of 12 hours, so it's compliant with all the use cases for POTS lines, including and especially the fire systems. That means you get to keep all of your current infrastructure the same, and we just replace the copper cables with the cellular connection. If you think about the extensive history of copper lines, they've had a really good run. It's kind of crazy, and with increased pressure that we're all feeling for security and reliability, just replacing with the POTS line and the solution I just feel like it's a no-brainer. So Cradlepoint has really set the industry standard for cellular routers, and for this solution, we're using the IBR 650 router.
Just something to add to what Anna had to say. It's very important, especially in these installations where emergency services, for example, are needed. It's so important to not just have just one box solution that goes into that scenario. What the service is it's monitored, which is so important, especially if customers aren't even aware of what's happening with their network. Someone out there is watching what's happening with the network. The other part of it is sometimes there needs to be other components that are added to the solution than just the one box. So having a service provider such as Bytespeed who can build out that entire solution as well, and then just being there to monitor everything and just make sure that the service is comprehensive is so much more important. And amazingly, this is all still for less than the cost of some POTS line services that are out there today.
Didi, can you explain more about the Cradlepoint router, the IBR 650?
Sure. So the IBR 650 is probably one of our highest volume products within Cradlepoint. And that's because it has such versatility and so many capabilities as well. And so part of it, comes, which is important for this scenario, is the fact that it has such a small form factor. It's very compact, and it has the capabilities of having, switch ports. It also has, in this case, this one doesn't have Wi-Fi, but we do have an option that does have Wi-Fi. The idea behind it also is it's semi-ruggedized. So you can put it in scenarios where conditions can vary. You can have temperature variations. Often it's put into some kind of enclosure that will protect it, but at the same time, it still has the capabilities of, performance. You can also manage it remotely as well. And you can even, in the event that some kind of connection goes down, you can use out-of-band management to be able to understand what's happening on site, even though you're far away. And that saves time and money because you don't have to send a service truck to follow up on what's happening on location. But it's one of our higher volume products because it does do so many functions in a small form factor.
Anna, Bytespeed obviously has a lot of experience transitioning to this type of solution. How does that experience translate to benefit for your customers?
I'm really going to echo a lot of what Dee Dee just shared with us earlier. Most people are seeing an immediate cost savings. And beyond that, the Cradlepoint solution that we've put together, you've got that secure insight and you've got options for troubleshooting that they really just don't exist with legacy options. So you've got the ability to get notifications when there's issues. You can see what's happening. You're saving money by not sending people on site constantly. And just that ability to feel confident and comfortable that you know what's happening on your network. It's worth its weight in gold.
Anna, could you maybe paint a picture to a potential customer what the management of this type of solution would look like?
Honestly, the great thing about this solution is that it is a set it and forget it until you need to type of solution. So you're going to do your initial install and your setup and you're going to get everything working. And then you don't have to worry about it, as opposed to what a lot of people are doing now where they have a lot of hand-holding just to make sure the system's up and running. With this solution, you get it going and you're going to get notifications if there's problems. So you're not walking onto sites and double-checking that things are up and doing what they're supposed to. You're going to be notified if there's problems. It's just a really, really neat solution. And the insight that you get into the cloud portal, you can see the LTE service connection, you can see the router health. You'll know if something's going on. It's just a much easier situation for management.
So one of the benefits is that customers will have an opportunity to use Cradlepoint NetCloud. And it's a cloud-based management so that you can have an at-a-glance experience of understanding what's happening on the network. You can make changes or make adds and moves either at a device level or multiple devices at a time. And you can also gain insights into what's happening on the network and where you need to focus your attention if you're looking in and monitoring what's happening.
I love that, Dee Dee. And I know I haven't worked with any of our users out in the field that don't love the NetCloud portal. And it's just such a neat thing that as you keep growing your Cradlepoint deployments, whether you've got your in-vehicle deployments or you've got your failover or you've got your POTS line replacement, they would have that same NetCloud management for all of those solutions and be able to benefit just really across all of their deployments with that insight and troubleshooting and alertability that you're talking about there.
So here's a question for each of you. What can customers expect when choosing to replace their POTS lines? What does that process look like?
Our team really recognizes the complexity of this process. So our solution, it arrives to you fully configured. We have an excellent support team to help you every step of the way. There are a couple of things that I want to mention, just two that I think I've seen cause people headaches with this upgrade. Outdated fire panels can be finicky and tough to work with, and I mentioned them to you at this point because I'm hopeful that if it could be an issue at the beginning of a project, you save yourself some frustration if you run into any snags with your upgrade. The other thing I want to mention is that because you're replacing the traditional line with an LTE connection, it's really important that the location that you go to has good cellular connection and service. Honestly, the biggest piece of advice that I can offer to anybody is to make sure you're working with a company that you can trust to kind of help you through the deployment process. Obviously, we would love to be that company. You can learn more about us at bytespeed.com/POTS-replacement or give us a call for a free consultation.
And what I would just have to say is because many of these areas where POTS lines are installed, they may have regulations that go along with it. So you may want to work with an expert like Bytespeed who has done a number of these different installations and understand what compliance needs to be in place to go ahead and make that replacement. So whether it's something having to do with security or if there's other services that are not anticipated from the beginning, if you're working with an expert, then you can have that expert advisor to help you through all the steps of doing the POTS line replacement.
It's interesting, kind of to lead with like, these are the things you're going to run into. But I think if you know that it might not be smooth sailing, you're replacing old technology with new technology and you're tying in some of that old technology to the new technology, it's a little easier to swallow when you go through and you run into things. And I think we've seen a little bit of everything in the deployments that we've done. And I think every environment's a little different and has its own unique set of challenges.
Can you maybe elaborate a little bit on examples? You did mention elevators, but beyond elevators and ATMs, where else is this like critical infrastructure where someone might not be paying attention?
So we're hearing from users that are looking to replace POTS line support for fire alarms, elevator phone lines, voice applications, security door access. It's just such a necessary thing right now. Specifically in the financial industry, you're looking at your points of sales, you're looking at your gate entry access, you've got your emergency safety systems and your ATMs. Those are all run on copper lines right now and are all really good candidates for POTS line replacement. And then last but not least, I would say that a lot of organizations run their security systems there, and that's a very, very important thing to have live.
Absolutely, Anna. A lot of these systems are running on what is critical infrastructure. And so it's so important to have, to not have outdated technology supporting these critical applications.
Thank you so much, Dee Dee and Carlos, for joining us today and visiting with us about this solution. You can learn more about us at bytespeed.com/POTS-replacement, or please give us a call for a free consultation. We'd love to talk to you about your environment.
I want to thank Anna and Dee Dee for bringing their expertise into the technology discussion on POTS lines replacement today. If you need more information on how the FCC mandate may affect your business or would like more information specific to how Bytespeed and Cradlepoint can help design a custom solution for your enterprise, we'll include contact information in the description for you. Thank you again, Anna and Dee Dee, and thank all of you for joining our podcast today. We look forward to seeing you in a future episode.